Hey there everyone, welcome back to Utility Sports. Really excited for this video as we're going to deep dive, break down Dylan Harper's game. The Rutgers 5-star guard now apparently seems to be a lock for the second overall pick for the San Antonio Spurs, which really excites me. I think this is great for San Antonio. Dylan Harper presently is number 2 on my own individual big board. I am very optimistic about his future in the NBA, and I think specifically in this video we have an opportunity now after the lottery to not only break down his film as a prospect but also talk about his perceived fit with the San Antonio Spurs. So if you guys do enjoy the content here today, make sure to leave a like and then also subscribe to the channel for more NBA draft content, especially if you enjoy what you see in this video. Let's jump into it here now with Dylan Harper as a prospect, get to know him a little bit. He measured in extremely well at the combine. You'll see his measurables here on the screen now. I'm very excited about the way that he measured in. Of course, if you watched him at all this year in his lone college basketball season for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, you knew he was a bigger guard, someone who had some of that lead guard potential with great positional size. And it did show up throughout the course of the year. You know, I think back to games against some of his counterparts there in the Big Ten, against some of the smaller guards, including Braden Smith of Purdue, for example, and just how much bigger Dylan Harper looked on film than some of these smaller guards around college basketball. And I think that's going to be a huge benefit for him starting his NBA career, specifically in San Antonio. When we're talking about his possible fit here, this positional size makes this decision so much easier for the San Antonio Spurs. If Dylan Harper was, say, 6'2" only, it would be a little tricky for that decision to actually pair him alongside former first-round pick last year, Stephon Castle, who they picked at number 4, and then also the guard they traded for, Deron Fox from Sacramento. Would it have been a good fit if he was a bit shorter? I think that would have been a very tricky discussion and topic, but since Dylan Harper is a bigger guard, someone who can play off the wing, can guard up the lineup a bit, which we'll talk about more later in this video, his value is still very apparent in San Antonio, even if it's not as a true on-ball 100% of the time lead guard like I think he might be capable of. Let's take a look at his statistical profile now, where he had a very good individual season for Rutgers. Now, the Scarlet Knights were not the best team in college basketball by any stretch of the imagination, but I really don't think that fell on Dylan Harper. He had a +8 net rating when he was on the court. If you contrast that to his fellow 5-star Ace Bailey, who actually had a negative net rating, I think it paints a pretty clear picture between these two players individually and how much better Dylan Harper is right now as an individual player. Net rating really doesn't tell you everything. It doesn't even tell you that much, but I do think it is a good extra little barometer for us. If you've watched film, if you've seen these two guys play, talking about Harper and Bailey, it's very clear Bailey is just not on the level of Dylan Harper at this point in time. Harper has a lot more functional basketball skills that play out big time on his actual film. Of course, we'll dive into that. A couple of things that stand out to me here specifically, the three-point attempt rate was actually quite high. About 37% of his total field goal attempts this year came from behind the three-point line, which I do think is a pretty good early indicator for some future shooting development. We'll look at his pull-up shooting. We'll look at some of his three-point shooting in today's video, of course. And then also some of the other very notable stuff. Great assist-to-turnover rate, specifically looking at that gaudy 27.1 assist rate. Very great stuff there. Somewhat active on defense, especially with that steal percentage. Block percentage a bit lower, but not bad at all by any stretch of the imagination for a guard. And then the other one I really want to talk about here is his free throw rate. A 41.9% free throw rate, which is very, very strong. Basically shot a free throw for almost every 2 field goal attempts he had. And I think that's a testament to specifically his ball handling, something he does very well. And it really stems from his ability to get to the rim, put pressure on the defense, draw and initiate contact. And there's nothing wrong with initiating contact as an offensive player. It really comes down to if the defender is out of legal guarding position, the offensive player is allowed to initiate some contact. Of course, that cannot be excessive. But in Dylan Harper's case, he does a great job playing into traffic, playing into contact a bit, holding driving lanes. That's something I think he's very good at. And then, of course, has a good frame when it comes to actually finishing at the rim. He finished very well at the rim in his first college season, shot 70% at the rim in the half court, which is incredibly good. And it was a big testament to his overall finishing abilities, especially when he shot over 57% on twos. In fact, he shot 7% better this year on two-pointers compared to future number one pick Cooper Flegg. And I think for Harper specifically, you can tell there is a range of gathers. He has a Euro step that he likes to go to. He can change pace pretty well, decent change of direction tools. And when he does actually put his foot down in the dirt, so to speak, he can definitely burst with the best of them, has a very quick first step. And then, of course, again, with the change of direction tools, the touch below the rim, there is a good number of valuable tools that he's going to bring to a team. And I think specifically in the half court, when you're looking at his ability to finish, gather, play through traffic, play around traffic, especially where he's got some nifty footwork. You see that one there where he's able to reverse pivot to score. Creative in and out dribble there, gets downhill, finishes with his right hand, which is his offhand. That's all very impressive stuff from Dylan Harper. And that wasn't just it when it comes to his ball handling ability. What I want to talk about here is splitting the pick and roll. We're going to go back to the very start of this clip even, because I do think it's important to talk about as against Michigan here, as he's coming to his right hand off this ball screen. You notice Michigan is in somewhat of an active drop coverage. He's not at the level of the screen. This is a very high ball screen, but in drop, it's still an active drop. He's not just sitting waiting for him in the paint. He's out beyond the three-point line. He catches that drop defender flat-footed and immediately shifts direction coming off of the ball screen. I'm telling you right now, in this draft class, Dylan Harper is the 100th percentile ball handler, decision maker out of pick and roll. He is the best in the draft right now today when it comes to making reads with the ball in his hands and splitting in the pick and roll. He does it so well. Look at this decision on a cross-court kick after splitting. This is where his ability to go right or left becomes extremely valuable. Here he is in a horns action. He's going to choose to go right again and splits downhill, draws a foul on this. You're going to see him do this more than anybody. And again, a lot of it starts with him going to his right hand and then getting back to his left, but he can do it the other way as well. Go left, get back right. See it in a couple of clips here back to back. And this is what maximizes some of his rim finishing that we just talked about. The ability to get downhill, even when there's a second defender at the top of the action, especially here on this ball screen against UCLA. Let's look back at this one here. This is, again, very active defensive coverage against a high pick and roll. And Dylan Harper not only is comfortable beating it, but then he uses some of that finishing. Nice little quick Euro sidestep there to get all the way to the cup unimpeded. Dylan Harper's a very impressive rim finisher, and he has the actual ball handling capabilities to get to the rim consistently, put extra pressure on team defenses by getting downhill no matter what way you guard him, whether it's in drop, whether it's a little bit more aggressively at the pick and roll. Again, his handle is a testament to his ability to get to the free throw line as well and get downhill. You're going to have to help on Dylan Harper if he's attacking off of a live dribble, and he can also do it in a number of other ways. It's not just, hey, split the pick and roll or win in isolation. He's very good at rejecting ball screens, especially with how hard defenders are going to want to force him a certain way because of his left-handedness. Here, gets a defender in Kylan Boswell to ice the screen. And even with poor spacing here, Ace Bailey playing off of what would be essentially the NBA break, Will Riley in the driving lane. This is where Dylan Harper's ability to hold driving lines, draw contact, get to the free throw line stands out. Another example here, way away from the basket, beats an ice coverage, gets to the mid-range, doesn't get the shot to go. But again, we're looking at the process here, not necessarily the result. And when he does have the opportunity to beat a defender, here he is again, rejecting another ball screen, getting downhill, playing into traffic a bit, then hitting a 12-foot fadeaway. He's a talented player, and it's really kind of stems from his ability to win with triple threat, win off the live dribble. I want to go back to this last clip again here as well against Penn State, specifically getting guarded by a very, very good Penn State defender here. Nice little reverse pivot to set himself up, and again, another side gather showing off some more of that rim finishing. Dylan Harper is a very, very special ball handler finishing archetype. Again, I talked about his 70% at the rim in the half-court numbers. Very good testament as well to his actual ability to finish at the rim. It's not just eye test. The numbers back it up as well. But there is a little concern I do have. Now, for the most part, a lot of these clips I've showed you has really stemmed from him being able to create space, create driving lines, hold driving lines when he's already got advantage. What happens when he doesn't necessarily maintain or win that advantage? Here's a great example. Boswell cuts him off on this drive against Illinois. He goes to a quick stride stop, then tries to pivot back through, cut back through with his lead foot there. But Boswell does a good job walling him up. And this is where I have a little bit of concern about his touch when it comes to playing over the top of traffic and through good contests. And for the most part, with his footwork and his ability to change direction, change pace, it's not going to be too huge of a problem. But against the best defenders in the world, against some of the best rim protectors in the world, I do think this will be a growth area for him specifically when it comes to finishing, especially going to his right hand. You see he does try to get back to his left often, misses another one there. And here's the third clip I want to talk about against Penn State. There's that good defender I was telling you guys about. A really strong cutoff here, very good help defense. He tries to go with the floater off balance, does not get it to go. And I think for Dylan Harper, those three clips specifically, I think do tell a little bit of a story about how, even though he's a very good rim finishing prospect, and I do trust his ability to actually handle the basketball, create those opportunities for himself, whether it's splitting in the pick and roll, rejecting ball screens, or just winning in isolation or transition, there are going to be some bumps in the road. And specifically, I think some of the best defenders, some of the more physical defenders who are sticky, able to stay tight to his hip and cut him off at times. Think about the Lou Dorts of the world in Oklahoma City. Lou Dort is going to have a lot of wins against Dylan Harper in certain matchups, I think. Now, when it comes to his ability to score the basketball and drop, this is, again, kind of a double-edged sword. I do love what I see, specifically this step-back jump shot. We'll talk about another Spurs guard a little bit later who can be a very good mentor for him, another left-handed player. But I think all things considered for Dylan Harper specifically, if you're looking at what he can be in the NBA, I think you're going to envision a good amount of high ball screen action for him. Of course, we talked about that in splitting the pick and roll, rejecting ball screens. And then just naturally against drop coverage, which is one of the most prevalent forms of pick and roll defense in the NBA. Again, this is a very non-active form of that here for Illinois. This is the exact kind of shot you want your lead guard being able to take. Dribble pull-up threes, dribble pull-up twos. I know everyone thinks, oh, the analytics era has removed the mid-range from the game. That is just not true. The mid-range has been eliminated for your 7th and 8th man in your rotation. There's no more Brandon Basses of the world. There's no more Patrick Pattersons. But what there is lead guards, lead scorers, capable, willing, and looking for that shot against defenses. Dylan Harper also can get to the rim. This is where some of that change of direction still becomes valuable. He's not just reliant on pull-up shooting, although the pull-up shooting is at this point still a question. We're going to get into that just a little bit more here. But I think the process specifically is what I really trust for him, whether it's going right or left. Here he rejects a screen against drop, gets a good crab on his defender, and is able to step through, ultimately draws a foul on Maryland's Derek Queen, another top 10 pick in this year's draft. Here he is against Yakichonis, fights for position well, crabs well, doesn't get it to go. But I think the process here is really good. He's taking smart shots, taking open shots. And if you just rewatch some of these clips specifically, here he is going against Will Riley for Illinois, comes off of this. He's able to create space. He understands what the defense is giving him. And when it comes to his actual development, as long as there's shooting growth specifically, yes, he only shot 33% on threes this past year. I think there's enough here, especially in terms of the overall decision-making as a scorer coming off of ball screens, maximizing advantage, looking for where he wants to get on the court, and then quickly and decisively rising up into jump shots. There's not really hesitation here. He knows what the defense is giving him. He's making those reads with a live handle, and he's taking advantage of them as well. Can still get to the rim, but specifically the pull-up shooting, which is our next actual segment to talk about here, is going to be one of the big super swing skills for him, because if he becomes one of the better pull-up shooters in the NBA, he will be utterly unguardable at times when he's on a heater. The shooting specifically is, I think, a really impressive growth area for him, where if he is able to get this shot down, specifically the actual result. Again, you guys know if you watch the channel that I'm more process-based in my evaluation than results-based. Like, yes, the numbers, the analytics do paint a very good picture, and it does help give you an idea and a feel for where a player really is at. But at the end of the day, understanding what's open, what the defense is giving you, and being able to exercise that to your advantage coming off of actions is what gets me so excited about Dylan Harper. He understands what he's capable of taking and making, and he shoots them at a pretty high volume. This is a lot of pull-up jump shooting. Here he is in transition against Penn State early in that game, got going early and was on a real heater to start that one. Here he is coming off of a DHO, rises up. Now he doesn't get it to go, and again, this is where the results specifically will be, I think, long-term very important for him, because if he does grow as a shooter, if he becomes much better than he currently is at actually finishing these types of reps, he becomes one of the better league guards in the entire NBA. That's where the upside really lies for me, is on this shot specifically, the pull-up shooting. If he becomes a 38, 39, 40% pull-up three-point shooter, oh boy, watch out. If he stays around a 33, 34, 35% three-point pull-up shooter, he's going to be good. He won't be elite. And I think if you're hoping or betting on him being an elite player, obviously the rim finishing, the ball handling is all super exciting. It really comes down to how much he can beat drop coverage and how much he can beat guys in transition, or once he's playing out of advantage, exerting some of his downhill gravity to force some pressure on defenders to try and cut him off on drives. That's where he's going to have a significant advantage if this pull-up shooting comes along, like I think it's very possible it ultimately will. Out of ball screens as well, I think Harper has showcased the ability to make a variety of different reads. There you saw him hit Ace Bailey on a short roll. You're going to see that exact same thing here, not with Ace Bailey, but with Rutgers' big man, as he draws a double team, gets the ball out to his big at the nail, ultimately turns into a free throw jump shot. Another great example here in the short roll where he gets off the ball early. When he does get blitzed, he's comfortable making the right read and just getting off the ball. This is where some of his positional size is really valuable here as well. I think this still image specifically showcases, hey, I can pass the ball over the top of my defender. And if you are trying to get the ball in my hands, if you're trying to force me to get off of it, this is really, really valuable. And I think for San Antonio specifically, there's a reason this is going to be even better, which we'll talk about in a minute. But overall, Harper's ability to utilize rollers, there's on a semi-short roll. Here's going to be a couple long roll examples as well. Look at this pass with a roll and replace action, just beautifully timed, beautifully placed. One thing he does very well too, going into pick and roll action, is protect the basketball, uses his size well. There he is crabbing Kylan Boswell, puts Tomislav Ivicic in a tough spot, ultimately hits his roll man. Here's a pick and pop, which creates a wide open look and ultimately does get it to go. Another great, easy, quick decision from Dylan Harper. Now here he is making plays outside of the pick and roll. A good kick over to the corner. Here he is again off of a pick and roll. Gets a little bit of nail help, finds Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey doesn't swing the rock, doesn't get the shot to go, unfortunately. But I think the overall process here for Dylan Harper, making reads and with the live handle out of the pick and roll, whether it's on the short roll, long roll, or to external teammates, outside of the two-man game, I think there's a lot to love and a lot to be excited about. And specifically when you envision pairing that with Victor Wembanyama, here he is working with Chris Paul this past season in the in-season tournament against the Lakers, catches a lob there. That's something Dylan Harper really hasn't had so far. Someone who is 7'5". It's hard to find those guys, believe it or not. Dylan Harper hasn't had experience playing with someone as big as or nearly as skilled as Victor Wembanyama. And I think here's another great example. Hits him on a short roll, and Victor Wembanyama gets a jump contest at the 35-foot line, basically, is able to go all the way to the rim unimpeded from there. Here's a horns action. This is where Wembanyama, extremely skilled, great hands, amazing touch, able to get this one to go as well. These are going to be layups for Wembanyama, and it's going to make Dylan Harper's life a lot easier when you're envisioning his fit with San Antonio, especially having someone like Victor Wembanyama who can dominate in the short roll, can dominate in the long roll, can be a lob threat. This is what made Victor Wembanyama a slam dunk home run prospect back in 2023 when I evaluated him. You guys remember how high I was on him. I literally labeled him the greatest prospect in basketball history, and I stand by that. I very much do, and I think the early returns, again, praying that he can come back healthy and really fulfill and live out his whole career, he is going to be one of the best players ever because of his skill set. Here he is in the short roll, draws attention, throws a dump off on Christmas Day to Jeremy Sohan. absolutely love the fit of Dylan Harper with Wembanyama. Here Wembanyama is on the roll again, and this is specifically the attention that he draws. Al Horford in drop coverage. We talked about Dylan Harper's pull-up shooting. I think learning from De'Aaron Fox is going to be a very great tool for him. Look at how many people are worried about Wembanyama here. Porzingis tagging, Horford trying to maintain him in the drop coverage, and it allows De'Aaron Fox to win this one-on-one battle against Derek White after a ball screen, putting him in early advantage. And again, here it is. Look at the attention that Wembanyama gains or draws in this play. Mike Conley bringing nail help on the roll after a Minnesota switch out on the perimeter. Gobert rotating over as the low man. Anthony Edwards caught a little flat-footed. Harrison Barnes just open in the strong side corner. These are reads that Dylan Harper is going to be capable of making, and as a result of it, Wembanyama's existence and presence in the Spurs offense is going to make Dylan Harper's life so much easier as a young player adjusting to the NBA. On top of the pick and roll play, Harper utilizes his positional size very well as a weak side passer. You see him passing over the top of the defense. Here he is in transition, throwing a one-handed pass that ultimately leads to a foul. Here he is again, pick and roll play, floats up a lob. If that's Wembanyama or any NBA caliber player, that's a lob dunk. Here he is splitting that pick and roll again, making a beautiful kick out pass once his feet get to the paint. This is all about paint pressure. It's all about downhill force and the ability to pass the basketball. This is another great example. Let's go back to this most recent one. The fact that this wasn't a shot is crazy. And this is where the understanding team context and how the assist numbers really don't tell you the whole story. The fact that this isn't even a shot attempt for Rutgers is crazy to me. And I think for San Antonio, when you have guys like Devin Vassell or one of the most underrated players in the league, Julian Champagnie, there's so many players who can be effective play finishers off of this type of creation at the next level for him in San Antonio. And I think specifically look at his ability to pass the basketball. Here's a beautiful dump off to a corner cutter. There's a lot of skill here. Watch this pass off the spin. Oh my gosh. He is so talented. And I think specifically for Dylan Harper, with his ability to pass the basketball, San Antonio's willingness to cut, they've got guys around him who are going to be willing to move off the basketball. And of course, they have such a generational player at the center of everything in Victor Wembanyama that Dylan Harper's creativity, positional size, and ability to read the whole court, not just the strong side of the court, is going to be a huge weapon for the Spurs in the half court. When we look at Dylan Harper, one of the other things that I think is extremely underrated in his overall play is his off-ball work and what he does without the basketball. This is something where everyone talks about him as an on-ball prospect. I totally understand why. A lot of the potential does lie in his creation tools as a playmaker and scorer, but he is a very instinctive cutter. Someone who, when he was getting denied the basketball, here he is against Penn State, getting denied the ball, just simply back cuts it, and with his positional size and finishing skills, he's able to maximize a lot of that. And then he also moves off the ball pretty well as a shooter. A great relocation three-pointer here against Monmouth earlier in the year. Now you're looking here against Washington, a catch, jab, fire. This is all pretty standard stuff, but if you're projecting what his fit's going to be like off of the basketball next to Wemby, next to De'Aaron Fox, I do think he's an underrated player here. Cuts well, he's active, he's a very good spot-up guy, actually ranked in the 91st percentile as a spot-up shooter this past year for Rutgers. So while, yes, the Scarlet Knights didn't have a lot of creation around him, that's something that Ace Bailey's still going to be growing in a lot too, is his passing and actual vision and ball handling capabilities. Dylan Harper didn't have a bunch of guys to set him up, but when he was set up, he delivered, and he delivered very well. Effective as a cutter, effective as a play finisher, especially as a spot-up guy, and then his ability to attack closeouts as well. That's another opportunity and avenue for him to get to his finishing bag and finish plays off, whether it's a driver, a shooter, and as a cutter. There's just so much functionality here. Another great relocation clip. I think he's really undersold his off-ball play. I think he's very valuable. Another interesting thing, his ability to post up a little bit because of his size. We'll see what matchups he draws for San Antonio. I don't think that's going to be a huge wrinkle for their offense, but still something that could be very valuable. And when it comes specifically to playing off of Victor Wembanyama, I do think this is something the Spurs will look to do quite a bit. Wembanyama has really developed in a big way as a playmaker from where he was with Mets 92 a few years ago to where he is now as a player. It is night and day difference. I think the game has really slowed down for him. He's found ways to maximize his positional size as a passer, throwing the ball over the top of the defense. We saw him connecting with lobs with a variety of different Spurs this year. And then look at the attention that he draws as well. Teams are afraid of Victor Wembanyama for good reason, and that's going to create a lot of catch and shoot opportunities. It's going to open up cutting lanes. The Spurs do a good job playing off of him already, and I think Dylan Harper specifically with his off-ball play, his ability to catch and shoot, his ability to cut, finish around the rim, I think all of that stuff is going to be pretty much maximized playing with someone who is as dominant and as good as advertised as Victor Wembanyama really is. Another key component with Dylan Harper is his defensive size. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys for a second here. Dylan Harper has a long ways to go defensively. His attention to detail off the basketball, his screen navigation on the basketball, it does leave quite a bit to be desired. Okay, I'm not going to be sitting here trying to tout Dylan Harper as this elite defensive prospect. He's not, but I think specifically for his fit in San Antonio, the fact that he's a bigger guard with long arms, a great wingspan, and some good bulk into his body as well, makes him a valuable defender still in the team context for San Antonio. I think his defensive size is going to be very valuable. You see him forcing a miss here on Will Riley. Here he is in transition, chasing down Kasparis Yakachonis and getting a big chase down block. Here he is trying to cut off Kylan Boswell. Does a great job here with ball contain. Ultimately forces the basketball out of Boswell's hands. Now here he is in that screen navigation. You see the lack of value in his screen nav, but with his size, he is able to recover. Doesn't do a great job containing the ball initially, but has some of the instincts and tools to make plays from behind the play, and I think there's some value in that as well. And then when it comes to his screen navigation, he does want to work hard. He tries his best to get through screens. I do think technically speaking, there is a lot left to be desired. You'll see that in some of these clips, but he's very, very driven to compete defensively. And of course, I don't think that's a surprise for anyone who knows his father, Ron Harper, who's one of the better defenders in the 1990s, especially. You think about how strong Ron Harper's hands were, how strong as of an individual defender he was, especially. And I do think we see some small similarities between his dad and now ultimately Dylan Harper as a prospect. Here he is walling up Danny Wolf in transition. Here he is against Penn State as well, walling up, forcing a miss at the rim. And I think that specifically is where you're going to see some of the value in his size, as well as the rebounding department when it comes to getting on the glass positionally. He averaged over 4.5 rebounds per game this past year for Rutgers. And while, listen, that's not a crazy number. It's not like he was averaging 8 or 9 boards a game. What I'm trying to say here is specifically looking at the context of playing Harper with both Castle and Flagg. I think there's enough rebounding, athleticism, quickness, and size here for the Spurs to not only be okay with that trio, but actually quite good. And I think Dylan Harper's ability to get on the glass. Basketball is a possession game, and he can box out bigs. He can get in front, rebound. He's a pretty good leaper for the basketball, good coordination when it comes to actually catching and coming down with the basketball. I just think there's a sneaky little bit of value here. Here's another great box out from him. He ultimately gets it, is able to grab and go, and I think that's another little bit of value for them specifically. Now, when it comes to his next level as a player, I think he's going to be able to learn from De'Aaron Fox a lot. And I'm not really the biggest believer in just the overall, hey, mentorship, this, that, or the other thing, but I do think being around De'Aaron Fox, seeing the way that he handles his business, seeing the way that he plays the game offensively will benefit Harper a lot. I think there are some real similarities in their game. Of course, both of them are left-handed as well. I don't think that's the biggest deal in terms of actual comparisons, but I think the downhill driving ability, and if you go back to what De'Aaron Fox was coming out of Kentucky as a guard, someone who was defended primarily by going under ball screens, and ultimately teams were not scared of the jump shot, I think finds himself in a pretty similar spot to where Dylan Harper is presently as a prospect who the biggest question is the pull-up three-point shooting, and Fox has had a really great career trajectory growth in that area, and I think for Dylan Harper, I think there's a lot to learn here in this ballpark. Look at him on a skip pass here from Fox, on a hammer action on the weak side. I think there's just so much for Stephon Castle and De'Aaron Fox to ultimately teach Dylan Harper, and I think De'Aaron Fox specifically is going to be a good mentor early for him, not just in the, hey, take me under your wing vet, but just seeing him work and just learning from being around him. I don't necessarily think it's going to be like Deron Fox is the teacher and Dylan Harper is the student. It's just more so seeing by observing and learning by doing. And I think that's going to be a really good opportunity here for Dylan Harper, who to me does have some shades of Deron Williams with the crossover, the ball handling capabilities, the downhill presence. And then also one thing Deron Williams was a big shot maker. Took shots off the dribble. I think a very similar profile to Dylan Harper. And also one thing, Deron Williams, kind of a forgotten thing from NBA basketball, but he posted up quite a bit as a guard. You think about the Jason Kidds of the world, the Deron Williams of the world. The guard post-ups have pretty much vanished from the game, but there's not a world where that's not somewhat valuable, especially with a stretch big like Victor Wembanyama. That's something maybe the Spurs could look to do occasionally with Dylan Harper to kind of attack and go after certain kinds of matchups. So I think it'll be fascinating to see how Dylan Harper's beginning of his career starts out. Again, I have him second on my big board. He will very likely stay at number 2. I don't think he's head and shoulders above the remainder of the class. I do think it's Cooper Flagg at the very top. I think there's a pretty noticeable gap. I do think Dylan Harper is the second best prospect right now. And all in all, I think the Spurs should be very happy. If you're a Spurs fan, you've got to be over the moon. You have pick 2. You're going to get Dylan Harper. And then at 14, you can come back, maybe get a bigger forward wing type, whether that's Carter Bryant or Rasheer Fleming. Maybe even someone like Cedric Howard, who's been a big riser through the end of this draft process. There's a lot of optionality for San Antonio. There's a lot of optimism that Spurs fans should have right now. And Dylan Harper, trust me, he's as good as advertised. And I think for San Antonio specifically, this is a really good fit into their young core, especially around Victor Wembanyama, who is going to be a top 5 player in the world as soon as next season. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel for more NBA content, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.